Awful form, upset fans, transfer bonanza. Not much to talk about this evening. Hello. Welcome into the 44th episode of the From the Firefly podcast. My name is Callum. I'll be your host as always. The later one tonight. I was at the theatre yesterday because I'm cultured. So I wasn't able to do one last night. So we're doing one today, and then we're Charlton live and everything. And work commitments I have to do. Slightly later show, so I hope that's okay with everybody. We won't make it too long to work night. There's a lot to talk about this evening. A lot to go through. A lot of transfers to talk about. But it's a difficult one because we don't talk about the transfers. I don't know if we can talk about the lineup for Saturday, but if we don't talk about the game, I feel as if that's going to be sort of pushed to the back. There's so many sort of controversial back end of the podcast. There's so many sort of controversial moves that have been made. Some of them probably going to take a little bit longer to talk through. Especially the trade of 2 third-choice goalkeepers are really. Did I miss out? I was at ABBA. I wasn't at ABBA. I was at Paddington. My dad really wanted to go, so anyway, that's where I was. Hi Mark, how you doing? Hi Sam, how you doing? Hi Stuart, how you doing? Yeah. So let's just chat about the Leicester game first, I think, because there's not a huge amount here really to talk about beyond the fact that I think it's been confirmed today, or it's been heavily rumoured in Leicester land that the Leicester points deduction should be announced next week, which makes this game very, very interesting. Leicester are a team on the slide as well. They're terrible run of form, lost to Oxford at home last weekend. Sat the manager, Marcus Fuentes is gone, which means we get to deal with another manager bounce. Fantastic. But it's only an interim. And it's someone I think Leicester have already made very clear is only going to be an interim. So we'll see. I think they're saying between 6 and 10. If that's 10, Leicester go from 6 points off the playoffs to basically behind us, I think, isn't it? If I can do maths, I think they go behind us. Yeah, El Crapico, 2 teams in the mud. That's exactly the way to think of this game. But the one plus about playing El Crapicos is that the team you're playing is also crap. And they're a different sort of crap to Norwich. Like, they're a sort of a lot of overpaid players who think that they're far too good to be in the Championship sort of crap, rather than sort of injuries everywhere, a bit ineffective, poor manager sort of crap, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think the Charlton Live fan earlier. I haven't watched it yet, but Sam saying that they were saying that it should be El Crapico. It will. I imagine it's going to be a very stodgy, very unpleasant game of football to watch, to be honest with you. I don't know why Sky have decided that's a game to put on at 12:30 on a Saturday. But I hope we can only play what's in front of us. Last time we played Leicester, we were pretty dominant for most of it. There you go. Yeah, if it is the 10 points, thanks Mark for doing this. Thanks for doing the maths for me. If it's 10 points deducted, that goes to 28 points, 22nd in League One, 1 point above Oxford as it sits now. That's why this could be such a key game. If you can get a result here and they get the full 10, part of me thinks it'll probably split the difference. They might get 8, if I'm honest. But the EFL are extremely, extremely annoyed with Leicester. So it may be one where they're sort of asking for the max here. Although I think the max was 12. Because I think it was 3 points for every charge, and there were 4 charges. So I think 10's possible. It wouldn't surprise me if that ends up being 8. I think that's probably where it'll end up. But it should be this week. Yeah, it is for this season, Stuart. So it will be this season. Those points come off of because they're announcing it in February. But yeah, Leicester on a dreadful run. Their fan base is pretty toxic. I can't imagine it's going to be a massively busy King Power either. I don't know what the away end's looking like, but the home end I can't imagine is going to be filled to the rafters. It's a weird ground as well. It's almost the same sort of outline as it's sort of the same outline as Southampton's, so it's a bit of a soulless bowl. Yeah, so there is. Yeah, if you get a chance, if you go, so go watch the second tier marks right here. There's a really interesting pod that they've done with one of the football finance experts. I watched a little bit of it. It was really interesting, but I didn't have time to watch the whole thing. But yeah, there's a lot of toing and froing, but I think the EFL are absolutely gunning for the maximum. Whether they'll get that comes down to lawyers and courts and all the rest of it, doesn't it? Really. They're saying it should be 12. I'm saying it should be 12. I wish it was 12. But I think the maximum they're saying is going to be 10. So we'll see if they end up getting the max or not. Stuart saying Oxford beat them, but they only had 22% possession and some stupid amount of passes, something like 80 for the whole game. Just like we're going to get outpassed. Can we cope with that? So good question. I imagine you're just going to set it up basically and put sort of 9 men behind the ball, don't you? This is not a game I think you want to press high in. I think they'll pass it around you. I think we sort of slightly caught them off the hop in the game at the Valley, and I don't think Sif. I think that was Sif Winters' first game or his second. So I don't think they were quite sort of prepared, and I think that we caught them on the hop. We couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. That goal, ghost goal, which will forever bother me. We go down by a point. That's one I'm going to point at. But yeah, there's not a huge amount to sort of talk about tactically in a game like this. Leicester will have a lot of the ball. Will they do very much with it? Well, do you think a midfield two of Harry Winks and Oliver Skipper is going to be passing through the lines? I don't. I think Mark's absolutely right here. One of those games where the first goal wins it. Risk of toxicity on both sides, which always translates to the pitch. I think you're absolutely right, Mark. I think you're absolutely right. In 1 second, I just have to cough. Oh. Apologies, had a steak dinner with some peas, so that's a pea stuck in my throat. But yeah, I think the first goal absolutely sort of determines, will be a big sort of determining factor, much like it was in the home game. I don't think they're a team that you need to be terrified of. I think Fatubu is obviously a level above, and in the very likely situation they don't go up, is almost certainly going to be a Premier League player next year. Jordan Ayew's still useful. That midfield trio it's strong physically, but I mean they can't pass the ball 5 yards. We can't pass the ball 5 yards, so I think it's just going to be very, very, very stodgy. And it's a game where if you're Sam saying smash and grab, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be smash and grab. That's the thing, is that I think if you get a goal, and one of the things we haven't done is we conceded early, not scored. I think if you get a goal, it gets quite toxic. So we're in such bad form, with no backbone, no creativity at the moment, so I can't see getting anything, to be honest. I mean, that's a fair point, but they're also in absolutely dreadful form. And it's also the thing where it's like you're in bad form until the day you're not in bad form, if that sort of makes sense. There is a point where it has to turn around, otherwise it's going to be we're going to be having sort of much deeper conversations. Yeah, a bit of tired sound, but on paper they are class. I mean, they are, but as I said, sort of basically the intro, right? They're a bunch of overpaid prima donnas, and I've chatted to Leicester fans who will absolutely tell you that they are. We've got prima donnas, and we'll come to that, but they're sort of Premier League prima donnas who sort of play as if they're a level above, which when you're on the ball they are, right? And the problem is that a team like Southampton are also a bunch of overpaid prima donnas according to their fans, because they have the quality. If you let them score, basically, if you let them score early, they can get on top of you really, really quickly. If you frustrate them, they make mistakes, right? Because they almost make one pass too many, or they try one flashy skill move too many, and you're on the counter. So that's kind of that's what you're looking to do, is sort of turn the ball over. Let them have it in the middle of the park. They're not going to pass through your lines, particularly with Skip and Winks. So you kind of let them have the ball. Don't let them create a heck of a lot with it. They've got the young lad as well. God, Paul's not in here. Mungala, the youngster. I should have looked this up, shouldn't I? Where's he gone? Oh. Yeah, Munga. There we go. Not Mungala. Munga. They've got Munga, so who's a player that you can't let sort of run at you. I don't actually know if he's injured or not actually, but player that you can't let sort of run at you if he's fit. So yeah, fast starts needed. Turning their crowd on them is key. I think you're absolutely right. You're absolutely spot on. And the games we should be looking at are Pompey, Sheffield Wednesday, Oxford, and West Brom. Look, there's yeah, very much. I mean, that Pompey game I think is probably season defining. I can't imagine a world unless the takeover goes through that week. Knock on wood, it doesn't happen. The Sheffield Wednesday is going to be that's a team that'll be down. They've been down for a couple of months, so you'll be playing basically children at that point, which they currently are anyway. In a half empty ground. Oxford's tricky because of Bloomfield. I think it's changed it. They're still not particularly flowing, but there's somewhere that's going to be hard to win. But there's somewhere I think you'd be gunning to at least get a point. And then West Brom's tricky because West Brom are god awful. They're genuinely god awful. But going to the Hawthorns is never really a happy hunting ground. And it's one of those where it's again, if they get an early goal or something, because it's Ramsey, the new coach, and the way they want to play, it's going to be difficult to sort of break them down. So I think in all those points, in all those games are points. It's just a question of whether you can get them. Not too much agreement between you and I, Callum, those sort of formations. Well, I mean, to be totally fair to you, Mark, as I will say to you, I think that you make reasonable points. If we all agreed on everything all the time, I think that would be the world's most boring conversation. So, it's no fun if everybody agrees. I'm sure there's lots of people listening who listen to what I say and sort of think it's absolute nonsense, which is fair enough. We're all football fans, right? We're all entitled to our opinions. Along with Barry Bannon going to Millwall, at least we have to play Millwall again, and we have to play against that guy. So, yeah, I guess Sheffield Wednesday done. Sam, I think Sheffield Wednesday are probably been done since about the first kick of the season. To be honest with you. That's probably already over, if I'm honest with you, mate. I think the worst thing for Sheffield Wednesday is the fact they could be relegated by their rivals if the maths ends up doing what the maths are currently doing. So that's a bit concerning. If we get 2 wins, Pompey and Oxford, I think we'll be safe, to be honest. It's going to pick up the old winner, drawing the others. Again, if you look at the math, we're not a million. It's not impossible to stay up from where we are. I think I do understand the concern, and I share that concern. Right, I'm not here saying everything's hunky dory, and we'll come to transfers and probably the things that are going to be a little bit more controversial than this in a second. But I think that it's one of those where it's like if you actually look at the number of points you need compared to, and I say it all the time, compared to the number of home games, especially that we have, compared to how many games we've still got to play, you're looking at getting 5 wins from what's you need the value of 6 wins. We don't know if we're going to win 6 games the rest of the season, but 4 wins, 3 draws, you're basically there into that sort of high 40s mark. And to be honest with you, yeah, I mean, our game's right. I think this is exactly what Stuart was saying. I take a point from Leicester in the circumstances, so I won't hinge on games like this. I'll hinge on the likes of Norwich and Portsmouth at home. It will. What's really funky, though, is if they do get that points deduction, things get really, really weird down the bottom of the table. And there's still a couple of sides. There's always one side that starts. I know there's us, but there's always a team that people maybe fancy a little bit that start really, really well and then proceed to absolutely disintegrate. And there were I think it was Preston last year. And there are teams that are sort of stop-start a little bit. We're going to play teams that are on the beach towards the end of the season as well, as the table sort of separates. So I think it's really, really early for those that are massively panicking. To be concerned, I think you should be a little bit concerned. You should be very concerned, actually, I think. But I think those saying, "Oh, we're already down. It's 2019-20 again. It's just hold your horses a little bit." I think on that, and we'll come to it because I think within the transfer stuff, there's some stuff that I've sort of read that I just don't necessarily agree with, and I don't think is necessarily helpful. So we'll come to that in a second. Norwich for me is a free hit now with the form they're in. None of them are free hits, Stuart, and we've got a point off the league leaders, right? So nothing's a free hit. You've got to go into every game. You can get something, especially the home games. The way teams that we're going to play at home that when we played them away were blew us away, but actually their away form isn't so good. Or the road performances aren't so good. So there will be opportunities to pick up points. Now, whether we can do that, I think is maybe a different question. But let's be honest. We've done 15 minutes on Leicester. I think we all kind of expect, maybe someone disagrees, but I think we all kind of expect a pretty stodgy game of football, where Leicester will have a heck of a lot of the ball, and we're going to try and turn it over as high as we can and sort of get them on the counter. Very, very similar, I think, actually, to the game at the Valley. We'll see if Leicester are any better on the ball than they were that day. The worry, of course, playing against a team with that quality is that they've got players that can create moments, even if you are able to put, do the game plan perfect. The goalkeeper's very good. The centre backs are hit and miss, but when they're on form, really difficult to play against. Vestergaard's a unit. He's very, very, very slow, but he's a unit, so you can't exactly knock long balls up there and hope that you're going to win it, or you're going to end up in a, he'll win most of those. So there will be opportunities. We've got to use the channels, I think. We're definitely going to try and make the pitch wide, which is not something that we've been very good at. But I think if you can do that, Luke Thomas has really struggled this season. So I think there's definitely, I definitely think that there's a way to play this game. It's just a question of whether the players can actually do it. And I have my doubts, if I'm honest with you. I'll join you guys in having those doubts. So we have to play Norwich at home, but we already had. It's a weird one, fam. It all feels a bit like we're in the twilight zone at this point in the season. You played so many games against so many sides, you can't remember who you played twice or you played once. I completely get that. I know it's a big if, but if we beat Leicester in the 10-point deduction, then we get 7 points ahead of them. That's exactly the point. That's why this game is a bit of a it's a bit of a swingy sort of game as well. And Portsmouth play West Brom, so if whoever wins that game, right, if that ends in a draw and we beat Leicester and we go 2 points ahead of 2 points sort of gained on both of them. So that's what I mean. Is the math isn't telling you that we're getting relegated tomorrow. The performances are telling you we're getting relegated tomorrow. But we're in January, not in April. So I do think there's a chance to turn it around. I think there are opportunities. You can press the nuclear button at some point if you need to. I don't think they're going to let it get so far adrift that we're goners. I do think that there is it's going to be one hell of a battle down there, and I think you do sometimes have to take the rough with the smooth, and this is the really rough at the moment. And honestly, as anybody that watched that pod, and there were many people that did, and I'm going to use it as a moment of shameless self-promotion, and to make sure you subscribed if you're new, because there were lots of people that watched that the Millwall reaction, and I hope I sort of spoke for those people that weren't absolutely losing their minds, even though I was losing my minds. Well, I mean, there's lots of nuclear buttons you can press to it. The one I don't think is going to happen. I thought I said it myself. I think we're probably going to finish about 19th, about where we are now. But I mean, the nuclear button is if it gets all too far gone, or we're in such a bad run of form we can't get out of it. You got to look at the man upstairs, don't you? You got to look at the man on the touchline. Do I think we're going to do it? No, but there are options that we haven't pressed. We've still got the rest of the window to go. We'll talk about it in a second. Yeah, so it's a bit of a yeah. So okay, let's talk the window, because this is going to be, I think, the bit where people get annoyed. If I could just some of the online chat, not from any of you guys. I think you guys have all actually been very, very lovely, from the things that I've seen, and you're always very nice to me, and I appreciate that, even when we disagree. But just if anybody wants to put a very, very annoyed comment in, and you're more than welcome to do so, right? It's a free forum. I may not bring up some of them sometimes, a little bit, whatever, but you're welcome to. You're welcome to disagree with me on this stuff. But this is a really, really difficult window, I think, to talk about, because I think part of me thinks that we're not all the way through it, right? I think that we'll discuss Rob Apter almost in a minute, because I think that's the big controversial one. Let's start with the easy one, right? Which is third choice goalkeeper for third choice goalkeeper. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm not the world's biggest Ashley Manabura fan. I never have been. I think that but he's been here for 10.5 years. Been a fantastic servant, and we'll talk about it in some of the other transfer dealings. But he's been an absolute consummate professional throughout those 10 years. He's done a lot of charity work. He's someone that comes across really, really well. And I'm happy for him. He's got himself a really good move up to Scotland to go play for Dundee United. And I spent some time at St Johnstone. Was it St Johnstone with Kilmarnock previously? I think it was St Johnstone. So wish Ash all the best in the future of his career. You know, really, really good. Really good, really good servant to the club, and I wish him all the best in that next step. The lad we brought in from Gateshead. Let me actually pull up. I've made a little banner, everybody, for the players that have come in. Which is obviously is it Tindenbrooks from Gateshead. I know nothing about Gateshead. They're bottom of the National League. I know that's a bit of a running joke, but supposedly they'd be a lot further away than where they are now if it wasn't for the goalkeeper. They conceded a hell of a lot of goals, but actually his saves above XG or whatever that stat is very, very good. He's young enough for a goalkeeper. He's quite young. He's got a couple of years to develop. He's here on a medium-length contract. We're not going to see him. I don't think it's one we need to spend very much time on. We'll see over the next couple of years. It may end up being a master stroke if he becomes our starting goalkeeper in a while. But he has the basic sort of skills. I mean, he's been capped at under 21 level for the Republic of Ireland. The Republic of Ireland produced a number of pretty good goalkeepers over the last sort of couple of decades. So if he's getting in those squads, he's got to have something about him. So, I think it's a switch. I don't mind it. It doesn't really bother me that I don't think we've spent very much money. I would imagine it's, we banked a little bit of cash and sent Brewer out, and then sort of just kind of got this lad on the cheap. Again, National League players, some of them make a really big step up. Players like Sorba Thomas have done that historically. So it's possible. We're not going to see him. I don't think we need to spend more than about 30 seconds on it. To be honest with you, I spent about a minute longer than I wanted to. So let's move on. And then we get into the let's do Connor Cody next. Actually, I know it was the last one, but let's do Connor Cody yet, because this is when I first saw it. Anyone was texting me nice. I absolutely hated this at first. I thought from some of the highlights I've seen, his legs have gone. I still think his legs may have gone. I don't think he's a particularly exciting player. He's on a lot of money. I think even if we're paying 50% of those wages, there's a lot of me that thinks, could we spend those wages somewhere else? However, the more that I've thought about it, and Mark's right here, we're agreeing again, Cody and Triggs will go one of two ways. However, even if this signing completely goes to pot, what Connor Cody brings are three things at the moment that I think we actually desperately need. Grit, leadership, and actually he seems like an absolute laugh of a human being. And I think that dressing room needs a little bit of that. Right, I think our dressing room needs the leadership firstly. I think that's pretty obvious. We'll see what happens to Doc at the last couple of days of the window. But this is someone that brings leadership. He brings grit. He's got a real grit to the way that he plays centre back, which I quite like. We'll see again with the legs. He's good in the air. He's good on the ball. Right, there are sort of positives to him. I don't know what the number is, Mark. I don't know what the number is. They're saying reported about 40. I don't know if it's that high. I honestly don't know. Someone was saying 25 earlier in the day, so God knows. But I think especially that leadership bit and that sort of ability to go into a dressing room and sort of crack a joke and sort of break the ice, I think we might need that. I think we need someone that's kind of been on the roller coaster. Someone that's sort of done the ups, done the downs. I do think that there's a positive, whatever happens, whether he's gone on the pitch or not. When we first signed him, I just thought about him on the pitch, and I was not particularly enthused. However, again, I think he's probably come in as the backup to Lloyd Jones, isn't he? So how much football is he really going to play? I'm not sure. But I think it's one that I've kind of come a little bit around on, rather than sort of being, oh my God, why have we signed this guy? I get it, even if it's not the most exciting signing in the world. Let's talk about Tanto going out, and then we'll get into because that takes us to Fevrier, and then we'll talk about Fevrier, how we say it, and then that will take us to Rob, which I think is probably the most difficult bit. Mark, stop saying things that I agree with, because I absolutely agree with you that Jones is a great player but not a leader. I fully agree with you. Stop it. This us agreeing thing is getting a bit weird for those listening. But I think you're absolutely spot on with that. So we'll see. I think the leadership. I think that's what we brought in. I think we brought in a leader. We'll see what it's like on the pitch. But then again, I always say I don't think we ever really replaced uh, Jason Pierce. Even now, I think about it, I'm like we missed that sort of that gritty leadership, but also that ability to have players in the dressing room quite like you because you're quite funny. I think you kind of need both of those to be a good player, right? To be a good captain. So, you know, he can play in a three. So we can talk about formation. We're not going to talk about formation. I'm just taking the Mickey. Let's talk about Tanto. This one to me, and I get it. I don't know if I'm in the minority or not. I'm not shedding massive tears about this. I thought really from the moment that I started watching Tanto, I liked a lot of things about this game out in the middle of the field, middle of the pitch. His finishing just isn't it? You can't be a striker at this level and miss those chances. Now people make the argument that he's getting those chances and other players aren't. That is true. You can't miss 4 straight one-on-ones. You can't. You just can't do it. I did not love the interview he gave, and I think probably I've taken it slightly out of context, but the I wanted to feel loved thing. Sorry, mate, you changed company, right? You're a worker, you changed company, you weren't doing a particularly great job at your job. Don't be surprised if management aren't particularly happy about it. Right. People may not like that. For me, he's still a Charlton player. I think ultimately, if it works out, probably what we'll do is we'll do some sort of swap with Tanto and Fevrier. Whether it'll work out or not, I'm not sure. But I'm not massively upset. If and again, I hate using these sort of rumors because I think that they can be absolutely confected nonsense. Yeah, I mean, I think stop it, Mark. But actually, I think this is it. 50-50 on Tanto. I'm more 70-30, but I can live with it. But 50-50 is okay. He doesn't need multiple chances to score. Equally, he doesn't really afford the time to come and leave them where in the season. No, and I think probably the reason for that is that Jones was trying to create a partnership, wasn't it? And Tanto was seen as a super sub. I can understand the frustration with some players who are not getting enough minutes, especially when we're not playing well. Maybe they can change it. But I don't think Tanto has the claim, really, that a Rob does. And we'll come to that in a second because I have a pretty nuanced take, I think, on that situation. But you can't miss 4 one-on-ones. You can't miss 4 one-on-ones, and those are cost us points, right? And the hope is he goes back to Stockport. He plays really, really well from Stockport of money, so hopefully he can make some of the money back if they get promoted. You are risking the embarrassment of Actor and Tanto firing their teams up to the Championship and you going down and passing Conor McGrandles at Lincoln whilst you're at it. Is it likely? I don't know. We're running the risk of Alfie May going past us with Huddersfield as well, so I don't think that's a consideration. I think the consideration is just how do we stay in this division? We'll work it out from there. I think the worst Tanto goes away, has himself a good time, back somewhere he feels quite loved, and gets his confidence back up. But I think probably there's some sort of deal if the Fevrier thing works out. Let's talk about Fevrier because this is a really, and I don't know how you say it, and I should have listened to the club media on it to be fair. Is it Fevrier? Yeah, it was 1.5. I think he goes high as 1.8 for Tanto with add-ons, which obviously he's not hit. Now, Fevrier is very interesting because Fevrier to me reminds me, I don't think he's the quality, right? Although the quality, and I'll have to go off again 1 second. No, note to self: don't eat peas before doing a podcast. But I think that Fevrier to me reminds me very. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's a clear replacement for Small. If you want a comp for Fevrier, the answer is Thierry Small, right? And that is a really, really interesting signing, right? Because I think what you're going to play him as a wing back, but he ain't playing wing back really. He's going to play as a hybrid winger. It gives you the width back that allows you to basically double up on that side. So if he is, and people won't like it, but if he is going to stick with playing Tyrese Campbell up front, you can double up. So Tyrese isn't constantly being doubled. It should, as I've always said, in a 3-back, you need to create width. I'm not having the conversation today whether the 3-back is right or not. I'm just going to use what you need to do is create width, right? I think he can do that. He can beat a man. He can dribble past a man. And I think some of the stuff on the defending, I think it's really important to note that my wing backs don't need to be great defenders. He needs to be an athlete. He needs to be able to tackle well enough on his weak foot that you can play him against an inverted winger. And I think you probably can. He's got a good left foot and a good right foot. He's going to absolutely drive all of us mad at times, I think, with his trying to beat a man or not getting the run or crossing or whatever it is. But the number of times last season that Thierry Small created chances simply by being there because teams were going, oh, I can't let him run past me. I've got to sit deeper. I think that's what we've missed it. He brings you an energy out of possession so he can chase up and down. He's a willing runner. If you look at his heat maps, wherever he's been, he's very willing to do the defensive part of his game, even defensive part of the game, even if he's not the best at it. So I do this was a player that, funnily enough, in the summer, and I'm sure I mentioned it on one of the summer pods, I would have had a look at when we signed Tanto. And it sounds like I think that we did. And they probably sort of priced us out of that move. Yeah, and Mark's bringing up the point, his goals, assists for this season are very close to Small stats for us last year. You're not going to get a hell of a lot of goals and assists out of him, but that's not what you're really asking for. I think if you're playing him as a winger, you're asking for outputs. I think when you're playing him as a wing back, yeah, you are asking for a cross every now and then, but you're just trying to create space. Because at the moment, we don't have any space. It's all really congested. But it gives Tyree some space to get out there. It gives, if you're playing a Callum or whatever, it gives him a chance to kind of run outwards. It allows a Godden to crash the box, right? Whoever your cam is, a carry, it gives him more space to run into because you're widening that pitch. And that's why I think if on deadline day, I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen at right wing back or what the plan is. But if you've got a Clark who's more defensive and can basically shuffle himself into centre back when Amari Bell's back, I know Gillespie's a bit of a thing, and I don't know. They're looking at this. I think it's pretty obvious this Kenyan lad, they are looking at him. Whether it happens, whether it's contingent on Micah, we'll come to Micah in a minute. Whatever. I think there is something in there because Jones hasn't said it's not going to happen. I think Corley said that he can't confirm it's not going to happen. Right, add some athleticism in that back five. Right, you've got Cody who can. He's got a good enough left foot to play at left centre back if you need him to. He's just slow as anything. So I think that so in possession we get stuck at wing back, and that's what this is. This is exactly what I mean for those watching. We get stuck at wing back position constantly, which costs us and contributes to the lack of creativity. It's just on ball to advance. But that's exactly what I think of every. And actually, to be fair, Chambers brings you as well. If you watch the game against Millwall, even when we were crap in that first half, there were a number of times Chambers was able to sort of skip a man, right? That's what you do. You're stretching that pitch, you're widening that pitch, you're creating that space. And that's why it's a signing that makes sense within the system. It looks weird as anything, him being loaned to a championship side. He doesn't have the output numbers where you go, he's screaming for a move up. But at the end of last season, he was a player that people thought maybe can make a step up. He's one of those Stockport players people were looking at. It's a risk. I won't deny that it's a risk. But I think the Chambers thing probably allows you to, at least you've got two players that can play there. He is comfortable on his left foot. And he's also quick. He's very, very quick. He's not, he's not sort of, I don't know if he's Terry Small quick, but he's not slow. And he's big and he's strong. So even if you can't defend one-on-one using your feet, you can do it with your shoulder, get the man out for a corner. There's a really good one we're talking about, because we'll come to Apter in a second. When we talk about we talk about Southampton in that game, right? The difference when Hernandez came on to play on the other side was he just started kicking people, right? Which Apter wasn't doing. We'll come to Apter in a minute. But actually, that's kind of what you need. You need a bit of physicality out there, and it's someone that's played there. He's played wing back. It's not a new position for him. You may think of himself as a winger. That's great. Most wing backs do. The key is in the first part of the name, wing. So this is a player that I've liked. Whether it translates to being a great signing, I don't know. Right, and I think that it is very, very intriguing. But I think that we do have two left-sided players now especially once Amari is back, and we know Amari will give you 7 games and breakdown, but especially if Amari is back, all of a sudden that back five I think looks a lot better with Clark on one side, a Fevrier or a Chambers on the other, Bell, Jones, Ramsey, and I think, and then you got Burke in there as well, and you've got. I think that does actually give you a better balance than what we've had in the first half of the season. So yes, they're loans. Yes, there's controversial signings. Yes, there's players that maybe you look at in isolation and you go, I don't know. But actually, I think that there's a possibility, and it's not guaranteed, right? It could be an absolute disaster. But for every sort of thing that you've seen from people saying that it's a completely disastrous window, that I don't know if it is. I think we'll see with the midfielder, because I think we know the midfielder. We'll see who goes out over the next couple of days as well, and we'll see if that athletic centre back comes in. Because if you can get that done, right, and we'll come to Micah in a minute, we'll come to Rob in a minute. But I do think you weirdly come out of the window, and I know Mark likes to talk about systems, but in this system, if you're trying to get players for this system, I think that it makes sense. Whether it works or not, whole nother question. And I think there's still going to be a roller coaster. But I think that I can see at least what they're trying to do, even if I don't look at it and go, "Oh, I'm basically I'm whelmed. I'm not overwhelmed, not underwhelmed. I'm whelmed." Let's see what happens over the next couple of days. Shall we do Micah first before we do Rob? Let's do Micah. So Brighton haven't given up on it. My only little piece of intel, and I very rarely give these out on these, but I know this one to be true. So, is that Micah is basically he's not going to agitate for a move. So it's basically he's happy to stay, he's happy to go. By happy to go means as long as there's a good deal on the table. Basically for us as well, he's not going to ask. So Brighton basically have been told pony up the money or don't pony up the money. I think if you get to £5 million, you can't turn that down. That would be terrible business. I hope he stays. We'll see if it happens. All right. Apter, this is the one. And actually, looking at the comments in here, I actually don't think it's going to be quite as controversial as I was fearing. I'm sure someone, when they watch it back on the YouTube comments, or someone who's listening to the audio, will be a little bit more upset. But actually, the live guys have been have kind of seen a lot of things that I agree with. It's been very, very nice this evening, actually. Rob is such a difficult one. And I hope that my position on this is pretty nuanced. Do I think that Rob was good in those first 4 games? 4.5, because I think the Millwall was the sort of half a game. Yes. Do I think he was setting the world alight as the greatest player ever, as some team to think player of the month means? No. Do I think that he's the player that's been most badly affected by the Josh Edwards injury? Yes, other than Amari Bell, who's obviously got an injury because of that. Do I think that he's a player that was treated poorly? No. Was he treated? He was treated ruthlessly, I think is the word I would use. And I think that there's a couple of reasons why what happened. Firstly, without Ramsey behind him, he can't play as a wing back. Right? Without Ramsey behind, it just doesn't work. Even with Ramsey behind him, the one game that Bree came out of and Apter played at right wing back was Southampton. And Apter was absolutely dreadful in that game. Scienza had him on absolute toast. And I get it, Scienza has a lot of players on toast. But it was after that second goal went in, I turned to my mate. It was my mate's first Charlton game, poor lad. And I went to him. The effort there. He was losing his man constantly. He wasn't tracking his runner. He'd thrown a tantrum about 2 or 3 weeks before when we were in Hull, which I didn't like at all, where he sort of stormed off. His mother had been liking things on social media in a public forum. I think that there's a part of me that goes, I think maybe apt to believe his own hype a little bit. And I don't necessarily blame him for that. He's 23 years old, isn't he? Sort of first month in the championship, I'm player of the month. And I think that it's difficult for me to sit here and I don't feel terrible about him going. I don't think that some of his family members, I think it was his dad last night, was liking things on X that was sort of undermining the manager. You cannot do that in any profession. If you or I went into a job and we were liking tweets, our family members were liking tweets about our managers, or we were throwing tantrums, or we were, you know, or we were getting into arguments, or whatever. You can't do that in any occupation, right? Whether you're a footballer on 10 grand a week or whether you're a guy like me working in marketing, right? You just can't do it. And so, whatever the football reasons are, clearly there's a personality thing that's not happened here. I do think that we're trying to get rid of some players, and maybe the dressing room's not. I don't think the dressing room's necessarily been harmonious. I think you can see that from Thomas Kaminski, who I've never seen as angry as I did at Millwall, with some of the defending, and he was losing his mind against Sheffield United and Derby. I think he's getting PTSD from his time at Luton with the way that we're defending at times. I just think that sometimes press pause, we'll come back to it in the summer. And it may be that Rob Apter blows it up for Bolton, and there's a point when Bolton have money, right? And it may be Bolton come up and they go, we'll give you 3 million quid, right? Okay. That's the sort of thing that may end up being a thing that works out. It may be a thing that he comes back and we all sort of put our swords down and we restart over, and that has happened with players before. But something clearly didn't work. And for me, at this point in a championship season, I just need to stay up. Right. And people can say it's the quality of the player. And I get that. And I do get that. And I think there's a really good player with Rob Apter in there. He's got a lot to learn. But the comment saying he's not a right wing back, the comment saying that he's not a Nathan Jones signing, I think you're probably right. I think the personality, they didn't do their homework necessarily on the personality here. I don't think his family have helped him in terms of some of the social media stuff. It should not be a thing where people are able to find clearly who's done it. And I don't think that throwing a tantrum when he came off against Hull, especially when the guy who came on to replace you puts the corner in for the equaliser in the 90th minute. So I hope that's nuanced enough. I'm not blaming anyone. My hope is that ultimately it can be rectified. I do think there's a little bit of the Terry Taylor going on here, where the absence makes the heart grow fond. If we just played that player, it would solve it. I don't think that's the case here. But that's where I sort of stand with it. Spoke to Apter, his head was on Mars. Then that's what I mean. Like, professionally, you have to put that aside, right? In any occupation, you have to, right? And he's got to move back up north. He's got to move to a really, really good football club in Bolton. Got to move to a really good manager from that level in Schumacher. Playing opposite CBT in a front line that looks really good. They're challenging for promotion. This should be a great move for him. Right, and if we come back here in a month's time and we go, we're really, really missing, we really, really miss him, and it's all a bit of a disaster. Okay, okay. I don't know if we're going to be there, and I don't think a lot of the problems that have this season have been because of who we're playing, whether it's Apter, because we played Bree there instead. In fact, 2 of the games that Bree haven't played, we've conceded 5 and 4. So, and a lot of the issues have come down that side. So let's see what happens. I think there probably are a couple more ins. There's probably a couple of outs to go before the end of the window. It was very interesting how calm Nathan Jones was in that press conference. So we'll see. The last place to talk, and he was weirdly in the club media, he was much more forceful on and Bix developing all the rest of it. And then on the Cawley Substack, he was a little bit more between the two clubs. So we'll see what happens. I think ultimately Brighton will get their man. Which is going to be very sad for me because I think there's a really, really, really exciting player in there. I think Sam saying about Terry Taylor being this wild that he still belongs to us. It is. I think Northampton are trying to find a fee they can pay us so that he doesn't get a chance to go on the free agent market. We'll see. Their problem is that they're in a relegation battle in League One, so they're in the same sort of situation we were with Small in that sense. If they can't offer him a League One contract and end up in League Two, because it ends up really messing with the wage structure. So we'll see. I'd love a left-footed centre back, Mark. You know me. I'd love a left-footed centre back. And I think you're right. I think if we can get a decent number 8 in, I think it's going to be an 8 rather than a 10. We'll see. I think we need to. Connor's obviously injured. Something's not looking quite right there. So it'd be good if we can get that sort of healed up. I think a lot of it would depend on whether we can get the midfield and where the Dot goes. But look, where am I on this? I think it's a really big game. I think it's as long as you don't lose it, you come out of it, you stem the bleeding a little bit, and then you get into 3 home games. QPR's record at the Valley is dreadful. I don't think Stokes is great over the years, but I think it's been a little while since we played them there. You've got Portsmouth in that huge game as well. So you've got a couple of home games where if you can get something here, you can really start to, I think you can pull yourself away a little bit. Maybe I'm just hoping, but we'll see. We'll see. Right, I'll be back on Sunday, as usual, 6:30, chatting the post match. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for a very nice show. I thought it was going to be a lot more controversial than it has been, but maybe my opinions aren't so mad after all. But thank you all for joining me, and I will see you all on Sunday evening. All the best. Bye for now.